we change our attitude here. Culture change, making sure that we change the value, the value that we place on direct care workers as a society. So the shift in gaining momentum started in 2020 when Michigan Department of Health and Human Services established the Direct Care Workforce Advisory Committee, which I co-chair. Slide, please. This was a huge step forward to have that kind of support from within DHHS and to have it be really explicitly focused on making sure there were strong relationships between DHHS and all of the external organizations and allies and stakeholders. So that was a big step forward. We have had 3 very active work groups. The first one is we're all around competency, education, credentialing, career pathways, that whole professionalization piece. There are also other significant statewide initiatives. Slide, please, Zach. And this, again, is just a brief sample. There's so much more happening at the state level right now on behalf of direct care workers. It's really exciting. It's an exciting time. And I have to tell you that Michigan is taking the lead. Other states are watching, they're taking notice. I'm getting calls from other states saying, you know, we heard about some of the stuff happening in Michigan. Can we talk? We want to, you know, learn more about what you're doing and how you're doing it. So I think we're really in a position here to lead the nation in terms of turning this around. So I mentioned state coordination is key. IMPART Alliance, a big event happened there. We got a grant from PHI, which is a national organization that their whole sole purpose is to advocate on behalf of direct care workers. And they work with all of the states. They track stats and data across the states. And they got a grant from the Kellogg Foundation to work with 3 states on policy reform in 3 areas: wages and benefits, professionalization, and better data. And they chose Michigan as one of the states. And then they chose IMPART Alliance as their anchor organization to work with. And so we've been working with them for the last 2 and 3 years. One of the goals and outcomes from that relationship has been to establish a statewide direct care workforce coalition, which I chair. And the importance of that is that, you know, power comes in numbers, right? We started out with about 50 members. We now have about 800. And it tells you the importance, the impact of this shortage on so many people across the state. And it makes a big difference when there is stuff happening at the Capitol, you know, some legislation that is related to direct care workers or budgeting decisions. It makes a big difference to be able to mobilize that many people quickly and have them all contact their representatives with the same message, with consistent messaging, so that we're not all saying something different that contradicts each other or undermines each other's goals. And one great example of this is during COVID, we sent out advocacy alerts. People bombarded the legislators. They agreed to give premium pay to all direct care workers of an increase of $2.35 an hour. And then when COVID started to recede and it was time those premium pays were going to expire, we bombarded them again and said, you have to make this permanent. We can't go backwards here. And it's my understanding that Michigan is the only state that decided to make it permanent, and it's now in the general fund. So done a lot of things, really great things. The MICA grant, I could tell you about that. I'd be happy to talk more about that. One really exciting thing is the state funding IMPART Alliance received within the last year. Again, we appealed to DHHS and legislators, submitted a proposal to establish a statewide direct care workforce training and credentialing infrastructure. And lo and behold, it was kind of a surprise to us. We thought it was a real long shot, but they funded it. And it's in the general fund budget right now. And they have entrusted that whole process to IMPART Alliance. So we are calling in all of our partners, because this obviously is going to take a lot of input from stakeholders across the state to at least build the skeleton of an infrastructure and start to get that up and running within the next 2 to 3 years. So very excited about that. To me, the progress is happening almost daily. I'm in meetings all day long. There's stuff happening at the Capitol as we speak related to this issue. So it's stunning. And it really gives me great hope. Well, like AgeAlive, I could go on and on about IMPART Alliance. It is something I feel very passionate about. I think it is a social economic justice issue that affects all of us. And it's not just about care issues. It affects our economy. It affects non-care organizations, productivity with, with all of the companies who, a lot of their staff, have employees are actually caregivers and are struggling, just like the college students, to juggle their job and caregiving. And so there's lost productivity. It affects housing, transportation, it affects everything. So it's not just about long-term care supportive services. I'm going to close there and leave a few minutes for discussion. I want to ask Lori, what did I miss?
Can I say a couple things about you?
Oh gosh, I don't know about this. I was going to close it right there. I should just close it.
Well, Claire's very modest, and you can see the quality and the volume of work that she's been contributing to our community for the last, 4 decades, but most recently 10.
Yeah, right.
But you have a flyer. I wanted to bring attention to the City of East Lansing DEI office is partnering with the Primetime Senior Program to host Clare as the keynote speaker on ageism as an issue in our society. And so it's a good next step for people who have heard this to come to that session. And it's May the 9th at noon at the Hannah Community Center. And Clare will be the keynote speaker, because from where we sit, we all hear about DEI issues, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there are lots of people doing a lot of work on campus about that issue, but rarely do you hear about ageism as one of the isms. So I'm so excited that Claire's going to bring this to people's attention. And so, as I said, she's modest about this, but also she has been invited to work with the AARP because they have sanctioned the age-friendly communities and the age-friendly states in our nation. So we are an age-friendly university, an age-friendly community in East Lansing, and the state of Michigan is age-friendly. So Clare is going to be one of 3 presenters on a national, I don't know if it's international or national, webinar in June, on June 13th, about how the university at MSU and the City of East Lansing have worked together to bring our initiatives and our ideas together to make our community a better place for people of all ages. And as she said, I serve on our City of East Lansing steering committee for age-friendly communities with Jim Levandy as our chair. And we have the Levandy social work program for students who are working on their master's in social work to work in aging. And it's named after his wife. She was one of my social work professors back in the 70s. And there's a small cohort of people who really do this kind of work in the area of aging.
And Dr. Sung, who spoke last week, is the current
and he's
coordinator.
the current coordinator of that Levandy program. But anyway, so we're excited that we can bring all these ideas to the City of East Lansing and work together. And everything that Claire just talked about is a good illustration of some of the things that we're doing. So I'm excited. But I want to make this an open invitation for Thursday morning at the MSU Federal Credit Union, the Farm Lane branch. Just show up to the community room. We'll have breakfast for you. We've got, as she explained, the speakers, and because at this point it's probably too hard to register, but you're okay to walk in, and we'll have a wonderful day. The forum, yes. It's our 2023 AgeAlive Research Forum, and it's about living a purposeful life with dementia. It will be very upbeat. It will be in support of caregivers, and we'll have resource agencies there to give information. Researchers from the University of Michigan. Yes, we're letting the University of Michigan participate in our event. We're good colleagues, starting at 9 o'clock on Thursday, the 27th of April. It goes from 9 to 1, and it's free. And we really encourage you to attend if you can.
You might mention Debbie Harrison and her husband.
Oh, yes. Debbie Harrison, her husband, Michael Harrison, was a judge. I'm not sure which area he served in as a judge, who had Alzheimer's disease and became a painter. And she will be there to present as a caregiver. So we anticipate a lot of caregivers will be there, but also folks who have dementia. So it will be a very unique kind of a forum for us anyway.
Yeah. And Debbie is bringing some of Michael's art that will be on display, as well as a storyboard kind of walking through his life and all of his contributions to this community. And then we also have Carol Monson, Dr. Monson, who just published a book called Aging Optimally, and she will be there to sign her books.
She's a former professor from the College of Osteopathic Medicine. Yeah. So if you have not had a chance to get to the International Center to see the butterfly garden, if you use the Alliance OBGYN clinic over on Coolidge, they have also had a garden in their lobby since November, and Zara is just now taking it down, and people are crying. Why are you taking down the garden? We see this happen every time she does have to take it down. People are so despondent. And there's an interesting story there that one of the physicians had a bad day at the hospital. She lost a baby and had just been so depressed, and came to the credit union to get some banking done, and walked into the lobby. It was at the main headquarters. We had the last 2 years were there in the lobby, filled with these flowers and butterflies. It just hits you so hard emotionally. And she sat and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed because she had a horrible day losing a baby. And she said, we have to do this in our clinic. This is so powerful. She just was amazed at the power of these community-made butterflies, and the credit union staff made the butterflies. And so she made the idea and presented it to her staff, and they helped us make butterflies, and Zara created the flowers. And so that is also a lovely garden, but it's coming down. So, but it's just another example of our community outreach and our partnerships with the private as well as the public. So I'm sure we have some time for questions. Stella, do you handle that? Thank you for being here, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming today, but also, being part of this program for a long, many weeks. I know a lot of you have come week after week. So thank you so much for your support, and we look forward to the fall when we'll start again. We already have speakers lined up, and we hope to continue to do it in partnership with you. And so we look forward to continuing to work together for a long time to come. And there are brochures over there. And for those of you that, oops, we never did. There we go. There's some contact information, our websites for AgeAlive, for IMPART Alliance, I think. Zara's gallery, the Senior Ambassador Program one is not up there, but it's just Senior Ambassadors, right? .org.
Yes.
Okay.
Senior Ambassadors Program.org.
Program.org, yes. So we're gonna we do have, I don't know how much, I guess we have quite a bit of time. If you wanna just have questions or discuss.
Can you tell us a little more about that Senior Ambassador Program and how you mentioned matching of the elderly and the youth? So anything more that you can offer, know what we're getting into?
Yeah, I actually, I think I'm going to let Lori talk about that. She's much more involved in that than I am, but
You can
it's,
see she's busy being at the state legislature, so. The Senior Ambassadors Program actually came about with the College of Social Science scholars, those students saying, we would really like to reach out to elders in the community, older adults who might be isolated, which was really heartfelt, I thought. And at the same time, AgeAlive was doing our intergenerational work and trying to bring seniors and youth together. And we had one planning meeting at the Hannah Community Center at prime time, and COVID hit. We never met in person after that for years. And so we're so fortunate because these social science scholars are so bright. They created the platform for the program, and they did interview questions. They talked about ageism so that we can educate the students about that this is something you need to be aware of, and questionnaires about your interests and hobbies, and so that the students could look at what the seniors are looking for and what the students are looking for, and then bringing them together. And I don't know that we've done a study on the success of the matches, but I'd say we're pretty much at 90% success with those that have been connected. And right now we have about 20 active pairs. And we had an event. It was our first get together in person event. Some people had never even met in person because they've been doing all these interviews on Zoom. And so we were at Coral Gables, which is classic. And we heard stories. The pairs stood up and talked about their relationships. And it was so moving. One was from a young man who said, I talked to my grandma and I talked to my mom, but it just isn't the same as my conversations that I have with we call them senior hosts. The students are the ambassadors and the senior host. And he said, if it weren't for my relationship with her, I would never have had the courage to apply for a Mitchell scholarship, which is a full ride, 1 whole year to study in Ireland. And he received that scholarship. It's a national scholarship. And had he not had that relationship with his senior host, he said he never would have applied. And that gives me chills just to talk about it because it's so impactful. And he's going to Ireland for a year, and she'll be traveling overseas, and she might get a chance to hook up with him over there, which is really cool. There's also a guy in his 90s who has a female student who's from India. She's an international student, and even during COVID, when she had to go back to India, even with the time difference, somehow they maintained to do their Zoom relationship. And this is the story that we always say, okay, this is what you don't do. But it's still funny because he's in his 90s and he bought a new car. And when she came back to campus, he taught her how to drive. Because she's from India. And I think he bought the car so that she could drive him around. So, but to see them together, it's just so refreshing. And we have a student who had been ill, and her parents lived in the Upper Peninsula, so they couldn't be down here for her when she had surgery. And so her senior host was there to support her. We have a lot of international students that are involved. So, and even Stella had been matched too. I don't know if you want to share that. So it's really a way for the student leadership team to take the applications of the seniors who are interested and the applications of the students. We do run criminal background checks on both. The university runs the background check on the students, and the City of East Lansing Human Resources runs the background check on the seniors. And we do have to be careful because you can imagine university risk management is like, oh no, you don't want a 95-year-old teaching the student how to drive his car. So we don't want to promote that one. But it is interesting how these relationships have grown. Some have ended, but the majority have carried on. So we're hoping that we'll have a recruitment opportunity, and you might want to, we can promote it through the Town and Gown. We're working with Bircham Hills, who's really interested in hosting such an event where we can invite the community to come and try to recruit more senior hosts, because it is a challenge to try and find enough of both the students and the seniors to come together. We have an automatic cohort of the social science scholars that come in that Dr. Waller advises. And they come in every year. There are about 20 or so of them. And that was the group that initiated this idea. So they're kind of shuffled in and willingly, and they're so bright and so encouraging. We had one student who at the Coral Gables event had that night been part of the Wharton Center. What's the governor's name? Governor. No, Blanchard. It was Blanchard who has a series that he brings executives in, and Leon Panetta was here a few months ago. I think it was back in November. Leon Panetta presented, and the student was the one who introduced Governor Blanchard on the stage of the Wharton Center. So that's how bright and able they are. So it's exciting. So watch for our advertising. You can go on the Senior Ambassadors website, and there is a place where you can click to join as a senior host. And we are looking for more, so that would be great. Yes.
Another question. How big a group, and does it run year round? Are you obligated to be with them through the summer?
That's a mutual decision that you make with your student. There is no obligation. We recommend that you meet weekly because we think that's how you form a meaningful relationship. But there's no requirement. There's no length of time that you're obligated to serve. We just hope that it's a genuine, real friendship that you'll want to carry on. And if you both say, you know, summertime is not going to work because we're too busy doing summer activities, we can meet back again in the fall, or maybe, you know, we've had our relationship and we're done with that now, and then you move on. So there's no obligation. Right now we have 20 active pairs.
Stella, did you want to say anything about your experience?
Yeah, I had a really good time with my host.
Do you want to come up and speak here?
Yeah.
Stella's coming up to tell you about her experience as a student ambassador.
Yeah, I met my host, Sue, I think, how long? I think it was maybe 3 years ago now. And we had a great time. One of the things that she was really into the stock market and exchanging stocks. And that was something I had no idea about. And she kind of just talked to me about that. I could tell she was really passionate about it. So it was really fun to listen to her and have her teach me about something that she was knowledgeable on and that I could learn from her. And she's also a very well-traveled person, which is something I really admire. And she would tell me about all of these like places that she's been. I remember she's been to Thailand riding elephants. That was one of the main ones that stuck out to me, but I think there are a lot of other places as well. And it was really fun to just connect with her and learn a lot more from her. So, but since then I've become the town and gown student intern. That's kind of where my journey with this whole program has led me. So yeah.
Thanks.
Stella, thanks for all you do.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
If we attend, a lot of state reps have coffee hours.
Mhm.
And my husband and I tend to attend those coffee hours. Our state rep is Angela Whitworth, not to be confused.
Right.
And what question or questions could we pose to a state rep about all that you've
Mhm.
discussed and shared with us?
That's a great question.
Are all state reps aware of ageism and what needs to be
No,
implemented?
no, they are not. A lot of what I think we do is it's important to raise awareness with just basic things like what is a direct care worker? A lot of them don't really understand what a direct care worker even is or does, or who they are, or that there's such a massive shortage, or how many of them there are. So I was a couple of weeks ago, I gave some testimony to the House Health Policy Subcommittee and just gave some basic information, some basic statistics about direct care workers in Michigan and the shortage and why we have a shortage and what are some of the things we need to be doing to address the shortage. So, a lot of it is around education, raising awareness, And we do have some literature. We have like the fact sheet. Right now we have so many amazing work groups. We have one work group that is all about, we're putting together a nice, clean list of recommendations for the state of Michigan on how to address the direct care workforce shortage. There have been a couple of studies done, and by like public sector consultants and some of these other research companies who have given us recommendations. And we formed this committee to figure out, okay, which ones do we want to pursue, which ones maybe don't make sense for Michigan. And then we realized that we shouldn't base these decisions on just one study or two studies, because there have been a number of Michigan specific studies that ended up with recommendations. There have been national studies with recommendations for all of the states. I've participated in a couple of research studies looking at what other states are doing. So there are a lot of recommendations. So we have spent a year amassing all of this information, different recommendations from different sources. We're collapsing them, figuring out what's good for Michigan, what's not. And we hope to very soon have a nice clean list to answer that very question, because the legislators, when you go talk with them, they'll say, yeah, but tell us what we can do. What can we do? Do we need a law passed? Do we need new regulations? Do we need to fund something? So we're putting together, and I just met with them yesterday. It's an amazing group. We're putting together a list of recommendations, but we're making it really clear. This is what has to happen immediately. This is maybe the next short-term goal. These are some long-term goals, and this is what it's going to take to get from here to here. And these are the ones that you can do something about. So it'll be like a roadmap on what needs to happen in Michigan and how to get there.
How can she find that information to share it with Whitworth?
We're going to, Whitworth actually has, I think, a health fair coming up at Lansing Mall, right? And we've been at a couple of those. We've had a couple of tables there. IMPART Alliance has had tables there. But it's such an exciting time, and it's so many moving pieces to this that, I think it's incredible that we're putting this list of recommendations together, and it's all evidence-based, and it's all done by stakeholders from all different units in the state. We have people there from DHHS, from Community Mental Health, from Michigan Association for Assisted Living Association, from represent people who are providing supports and services to older adults, people with disabilities, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We're doing something really remarkable, is we're breaking down these silos and coming together and talking to each other and building relationships. And so a lot of this is in progress. So I don't have a list of recommendations to give you, but it will be out soon, and I'm more than happy to distribute it. And I'm going to have to, that's a good question. If you had like 20 minutes at a coffee hour, what questions would you ask specifically? I think it would be, are you aware of the direct care workforce shortage, how critical it is, how important it is to address it, why it exists, and, what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it?
Excuse this interruption. Do you see a partnership with an institution like LCC, Lansing Community College, to establish a associate's, a one-year associate's degree for this DCW shortage? Absolutely.
Yes. And that's a great example, because we are working for, I didn't talk about it, but one of the grants that I got was almost 2 years ago now from the State Labor Department. And it was to establish a statewide employer-led collaborative to address the direct care workforce shortage through education and credentialing, and to do it in partnership with all of the Michigan Works agencies and institutions of higher ed and high schools. And and we have a credentialing work group, we have an education and training work group developing exactly what you're talking about. And LCC is represented on that. But also in our statewide direct care workforce advisory committee, we have, all of the community colleges had belong to the Michigan Community College Association, I think it's what it's called. And the person who's in charge of their outreach is very deeply involved in all of this. And our hope is that we will build some training programs and credentials that are competency-based and have them offered through the community colleges, the high schools, the local area agencies on aging, the community centers, all of the local infrastructure that already exists, and that it's affordable and accessible, and that it's not just about building numbers, it's about the quality of the work itself. So yes, we to answer
Thank you
your
for your advocacy.
yes, I know I could have just said yes, we're doing that, but we're looking at all partnerships. I'm learning things every day. I learned about a group a couple weeks ago through the State Department, excuse me, the Labor Department. They have a special group that they're training people with disabilities to be certified nursing assistants. And last year only graduated 100 people with disabilities to provide care to older adults and people with disabilities. So, I mean, the possibilities are endless, and, it's really just a lot of creative thinking, trying to figure out who are all of the groups that we have not traditionally recruited from. So, because we have to widen the pipeline, and that's one way to increase the numbers is to widen the pipeline. So right now we have I'm working with a group in the UP on what are some of the non-traditional groups we can recruit from, including the veterans, high school students, the Native American, the tribal groups, the unemployed, the underemployed, the retirees. So, I mean, there's so many groups we could be tapping that I think want to do good work. It's how do you reach them? I mean, you say, yeah, I want to recruit from the tribal communities. Well, okay, how do you do that? You got a number, you have the name of somebody I could call, or the veterans. How do you do that? How do you reach them? You have to figure all of that out, and that's what we're doing right now. And you recruit veterans very differently than you do tribal communities. And you recruit veterans in Detroit very differently than you do veterans in the UP. So it's figuring all of that out, the process. It's, we are just wrestling through all of this stuff. And it's exciting because I find it fun. I think it's fun to do this and to figure it all out, but we're making progress. So yeah, you have to attack it. There's no silver bullet. The silver bullet is that there's no silver bullet. You have to attack it from every angle you can think of. And that's what we're trying to do. And it's great. And we're always looking for people to participate and help. We need the voice of caregivers, of people receiving care, to get involved. So you had a question.
Do you see your primary home with involved with osteopathic medicine? Is there some long-term goal that you can affiliate with some other college on campus?
We're working with a lot of other colleges on campus, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where all of this goes. IMPART Alliance has its own programs. We have a fee-for-service training program, and we have advocacy. We do a lot of consulting and public presentations and things like that. But then there's this whole other piece that's at the state level. And really, I think we have emerged as the convener. We convene a lot of these groups that normally would not, you need somebody to kind of coordinate everything and bring groups together and build these relationships. So I think we've kind of emerged as the convener in the state. And I don't know, it'll be fun, exciting to see where it goes. I mean, one of the things we did with this big training infrastructure grant that's now in the general fund is we, there will be a training arm, but there will also be a credentialing arm. And we've taken some of the money and we've hired a organization called the Corporation for a Skilled Workforce. And they are a national organization. They specialize in helping organizations build credentialing systems. And so they're gonna like investigate all of the different possible credentialing systems and sort of help us determine what's the best. And we have these conversations all the time. Well, where would it exist? Would it exist in state government? You know, would it exist outside of state government and be a third party, maybe industry sponsored standalone organization? Would it exist in IMPART Alliance? It all remains to be seen. But it's, what's fun is it's, you know, we're all sort of committed to the greater good. All of these people working together, they have different constituencies. Some of them are competitors. They, you know, they have their own agendas, but we also all have this agenda that sort of transcends everything. And we're, I think, all pulling in the same direction and just want to create a system in Michigan that is good for Michigan. However that looks, and we don't know what it looks like yet. So it's taking shape. It's fun.
We have one question from Dr. Waller.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dr. Waller.
Okay, thank you, Stella. I just, I think we're out of questions now. So I just wanted to commend you, Claire, and AgeAlive for all of the incredibly important work you do. And just to say how much of a pleasure it's been working with you and with Laurie and the rest of the team. But I also wanted to take this opportunity to say goodbye to somebody who's become very important to this program and to acknowledge all the work she's done. This is the last afternoon evening during which Stella Weinberg will be moderating Town and Gown. And Stella has been in this role as intern for, I think, about a year now. And I think we're all very grateful to you for your dedication and professionalism in doing this job. For those of you who don't know, Stella is about to graduate. She is graduating with majors in sociology and psychology, and also has a minor in peace and justice studies, and has had an amazing, sorry to embarrass you, Stella, she's had an amazing time here at MSU, and she's done so much. Academically, she's been brilliant all the way through. But she's volunteered in a Syrian refugee camp on the Greek island of Lesbos. She's interned for the city of Flint in its planning division. She also spent a day a week working for the adolescent diversion program, which advocates for boys and girls at risk of falling into the school to prison pipeline. But I'm particularly grateful to you, Stella, for your sterling work for Town and Gown. So thank you, and please join me in a real or virtual round of applause for Stella.
We had a big gift to give you, Stella.
She's graduating with honors.
Thank you, Dr. Wall. I really appreciate it. I would have answered from my laptop, but I didn't want it to be all echoey again. So thank you so much.
Yeah, Stella has done a stellar job.
Stella, question for Stella. When did she attend class? I mean, or how many hours of sleep does she get a night?
Well, thankfully this semester.
Only 3. You know, a lot of people consider that a full schedule. So I think we are out of time almost. Well, a few more questions. We could take maybe one.
I'll stop there real quick. Okay. Jackie, do you want to move in that?
All right, that's it for us today. Sorry. Thank you so much. Okay.
Claire, you're muted.
Okay, well, I'll just talk to this group here.
Okay,
for-
now you're unmuted.
Okay, I was just saying, it's been a delight to be here. I hope you'll join us in the fall when this resumes. And I'm happy to talk about any of the programs I mentioned. If you're interested in getting involved, just email me. It's Luz, it's just my last name, at msu.edu. And we can chat further. I look forward to doing more work with you. So thanks so much.
We passed around the AgeAlive brochures, but she also has some MPART Alliance brochures around the table if you're interested. Thank you